Hi, my name's Paul Neal, and welcome to Intermediate Rigging DVD number 2. In this DVD, we'll be using the Ogre character again, and further expand on what we learned in Rigging DVD number 1. With this Ogre rig that I'm showing you here, I've expanded on some of the ideas we used in DVD number 1, as well as added some of the ideas that we'll be learning in DVD number 2. In expanding on some of the ideas, I further worked with the foot rig to create foot bones. I've modeled up the foot bones and the rest of the character using an edit mesh modifier to show the volume of the character so we can better see what we're dealing with without having to have the mesh showing. I say that I've further added to the way the foot rig works because this is the same foot rig. It is an inverse foot rig using the same bone structure in the foot in an inverse fashion, and it still uses reactor controllers, but I've now gone and added all the toes in as well, so you can see that the toes now spread apart as the foot slider slides up. This helps showing weight of the character pressing down on the ground as it goes through its foot roll. I've expanded the control set to be far greater as well, just showing you what is possible. Individual toe controls as well for each toe on several of the axes, as well as using the pen attribute holder too, which I'll be discussing in this DVD. And that allows you to be able to save poses on custom attributes, be able to scrub back and forth through them for animation purposes. This will make things a lot faster during animation because you can save known poses and get back to them quickly. This character has been set up with a spline IK system that is custom built. Custom in the sense that I'm not actually using the built-in spline IK control in 3D Studio Max. Spline IK allows for a lot of fantastic possibilities. It's really easy to get S shapes and flexing in the body with spline IK. It can be a little bit more difficult to control, especially if it isn't set up correctly. This one's been set up to handle positional and rotational movement on the 3 control objects that handle the spine. It also is set up with a stretchy spine, which we'll be discussing, that gives you feedback on whether or not you've stretched the character too far by turning red. We will also be discussing an arm rig. I'm using this character as an example because it demonstrates it very well, to learn how to do a much better arm twisting solution. This will get far better deformation in our mesh because we'll have a nice twist off all the way down the arm instead of the crunching that can happen if you don't use twist bones. Twist bones are automatically driven by script controllers, look at constraints, orientation constraints. We'll also be setting up a hand, once again using the pen attribute holder, to be able to save poses. As well as we'll be working with axis orientations to be able to control a better setup for the thumb. Thumb has a lot of control to it in the human hand, and changing the axis order in some of the joints can actually help with posing the character's thumb using sliders and spinners. Intermediate Rigging DVD number 2 will have 12 chapters. The first chapter, Spline IK, we'll be discussing how to create the spline bones and the spline itself that will control them. We'll also be looking at when and when not to use spline IK for a character, what its advantages and disadvantages are. Next chapter will be controlling spline IK. Spline IK can be very difficult to set up and control if not done properly. be showing you how to set up the control objects and look at being able to control it through position and rotation. Next chapter is stabilizing spline IK. Spline IK can have a nasty habit of flipping uncontrollably or twisting along its length when you don't want it to. Max's built-in spline IK also doesn't have the ability to control in a custom fashion to twist along its length. You can't twist it from the center out, for instance. The system I'm going to be showing you will be able to do that. Chapter 4, creating arm bones and creating twist bones in the forearm and shoulders. As I've shown you, this can greatly reduce problems when it comes to skinning. Next chapter is control objects and high IK, where we'll be discussing adding the IK solvers to the arm, creating wrist, elbow, and clavicle controls. The next chapter, twisting with constraints, will set up a constraint system for the forearm twist bones using Max's built-in constraints. Next chapter is extracting rotations. In 3D Studio Max 6 and earlier, there is no way to get at the rotation of an elbow or a shoulder that is being controlled using an IK solver without having to use script controllers and extract the rotation yourself so that you can use it to control twisting. We'll also be showing you how to use custom attributes on script controllers to make script controllers name independent. Currently, script controllers in Max are dependent on the names that you use in them. If the names of those objects change in the scene, it will break the script controllers. We'll be discussing a way around that. The next section will be on hand rigging. The first chapter will be hand bones, building hand bones, adding point helpers between bones, and setting up the hand rig. Next chapter will be custom hand control interface using custom attributes again. Once again, we'll be creating a scripted set of custom attributes, and then we'll use the pen attribute holder instead of the attribute holder that ships with Max. The pen attribute holder gives the ability of saving the poses that I was showing you and being able to scrub back and forth through them. The next chapter, wiring fingers, will be zeroing bones, wiring bones to controls. The final chapter in the hand rig section will be on the thumb. Wiring thumb to controls and also dealing with the axis order problems of being able to control the thumb on its first joint. The final chapter will be the conclusion of this DVD, where I'll briefly cover some of the ideas we've talked about and discuss some of the upcoming DVDs in my series. On to our first chapter, Spline IK.